Good morning, everyone. I'm Rhonda Burkhart from HCC, and this morning we're doing the fiscal year-end checklist for USAS and USPS. I already had a question about the inventory. We'll be holding a session for that at the end of July after everything has been taken care of as far as USAS and USPS. Generally, inventory is something that you just kind of wait for until, before the audit. You want to get things entered, not close out the fiscal year until you have the auditor's blessing, and then just make sure everything is in the system and generate your reports. But we'll go over that at the end of July. So we'll go ahead and start with USAS this morning. I'm going to show you where we're going to list our recording first. Here's my screen. And here we go. I'm going to go ahead and show you on here. We normally, so HCC under Finance, Redesign, and we're going to be doing the recording link right there. And we will list it under here. We'll probably have it the first one underneath there, right in front of the bonefish. Info webinar that we had a little while ago. So we'll list that right under there, and there'll be a direct link. As you can see at the bottom on this bonefish one, there's one on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, or it's on my bottom left-hand side of my screen. That'll take you to YouTube, and with a specific little direction of where to take you so that you can play that. If you don't get a chance to see, your part of what you're interested in, either USAS, USPS, or maybe you have a conflicting meeting or something like that. So it's always there. It's really good on that YouTube channel. We've received some good comments about that. So we'll go ahead and start with our fiscal year-end checklist. So we sent these out yesterday. We sent out a USAS checklist, a USPS checklist, and then the USPS advanced calculation sheet as well. So first of all, you want to do some things up front, and that would include your central office square footage, and that's going to be under your core organization. And so you want to make sure that is listed. And I've got our demo instance, which is horribly way in the past, like 4 years. I'm going to ask them, SSDT, if they can maybe upgrade that with some upgraded information here in the near future. So that's under core organization. And we're just talking about right down here in this central office square footage, and make sure that's there and it's correct, just in case. I know there's some districts that might have got some new space or changed spaces, and so that may have changed during the year if you made any upgrades or additions to your central office. Just make sure your ITC IRN should be in there. That should be HCC. If not, please let us know. And then just to make those changes, of course, edit here, and I don't know, will be nice. We'll say we added a 10 by 10 and save that. Okay, there we go. And that's easy. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the building profiles. Again, you might have had some changes if you've had any building projects. Maybe you've added an early learning center or changed things around a little bit during the year. I know we've had several districts with building projects going on, so just review that under periodic building profiles. One moment, just a second. I need to. Real quick. It's someone who actually came to our building. All right. So the next part is doing the periodic with the building profiles, and that is located right here. And so here is, where you'd put it in, edit if you need to, or create it if you don't. Add in all your IRN description, square footage, transportation, lunchroom percentage. I want to show you a little trick here. You always want to make sure you have 100%, but if you do it from the report generated off the screen, then, and you generate that, then you'll get, it'll actually total it up for you. But if you do it via the report and the report manager, I don't think it does. Generate that. Then, if this one doesn't have the percentages totaled up, I kind of like the one that if you just do a report from on, off your grid, that actually gives you your totals there. So, little trick of the trade there. All right, and then you'll have your that's where we have your district building information under there. Then the next one you'll want to do is your VALACT account validation report. You'll want to run this two ways. You'll want to run it as true and false. And so let's see if I can move this little guy. He's kind of in the way a little bit. Here, so that one was the true, it didn't have any there. So here on your VALACT, and that would just be I just use my quick, using my percents, my little quick finders, and then you can just go in and generate those. So this one was accounts with 0, true, or false. And then, so since this is a, demo instance, there's not a lot of information on it. So like this one, it'll give you error messages. So whether it's an invalid fund code, a function code, I think there's one other, there's a receipt code. There's different warnings there. And if you correct them here, then you don't need to, you won't have any errors later on when you're doing your submission. Okay, one moment, just a second. All right. So one more question. Okay. All right. Had a bit of a miscommunication. So since this was virtual, somebody thought it was actually at the building. We've done that in years past, but today it's virtual. So if you do need to make a change, if you use the utilities account change, that will kind of like change everything. So it'll kind of go through and change all your transactions related to that account and update it to the correct account that will be accepted. So there I have a screenshot of the VALACT, which we just showed you. Okay, another update is Ohio Department of Education is now Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, and ODE is now DEW, not Ode like Ode to Joy, and Dew like Mountain Dew. but just they want to use the initials DEW. So like last year, we had a situation where there wasn't, the ODE brief description was going to be removed. And so this year that's, still it's not there. It's no longer required for your EMIS reporting. Gave you some, I just left that in for another year just so people know where that is. And that is under your core accounts, cash accounts, in your standard custom fields, and that is at the bottom. I'll just view this one. So that's that bottom right down here is where that would be. All right. So other things you will want to do is inactive accounts which aren't used anymore, or inactivate accounts which aren't used anymore. So you'll want to do that. Also, if there's a, see, Tanya, are you able to mute people?
No, I can't mute anybody.
You can't. Okay. If it continues, if the person can't mute themselves, then I'll stop sharing in a bit and unmute or mute them. Okay. So you're going to inactivate your accounts which are not used anymore. Common things are like your SEC or grants for old years, there's zero activity, and or you might want to review those, maybe move things if they need to be moved, they're coded to the wrong place. But I tend to go like, like a year or two back and go in there, and I'll show you how we can do that. The core accounts, we'll just maybe do like an expenditure, like a 990. I think it has like some 15s or something down here. Okay, there's some 12, maybe some state grants from 2012. So like maybe we'd do the 9012. So there we go. There's a couple right there. And so see, they're active over here and they're valid. So if there's no activity in there, that I just don't even want to see those on my screen. So I could do a mass change where we don't have it loaded, but I think we have like an active equals false or something like that. Inactivate accounts. Save that. And I always advise running a report, maybe call it, give it a description. Say SBC 9012 account. I always like to put it in landscape, generate that, put it on there like a little audit file or something, just in case there's questions. All right, so you have that and you know what you've done, just in case something was done which shouldn't have been done and you need to undo it, you've got the documentation that you need. It's like, oh, which ones did I activate? Or maybe my filter criteria wasn't quite right and maybe I inactivated things that shouldn't have been inactivated. You can go back through your report and go back and fix things if needed. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that mass change and close this guy out. And then, so if I unclick the show active, then I'm seeing these 9012s and now they are not active anymore. So it helps to reduce the clutter on your screen and just kind of drill down and just to the things that are relative to what you need. So inactivating accounts is a great thing. Another thing is mass changing. Yes.
Before we move on, there's a quick question in the chat.
Okay. Can you read it to me?
Yep. It's sorry, I'm not tracking on the DEW instruction. Are we supposed to remove it, leave it, or other?
I would just leave that. I just, no harm in it being there. It's just, it used to error out if something wasn't on there. And you know, as of last year, they said we don't need it anymore. It's no longer required for EMIS reporting. So if it's not hurting anything, I would just go ahead and leave it. So I hope that answers your question. And then we'll continue on with mass changing, anything that you might need to change. And then different things for SCCs. We had something where we needed to update something for an SCC the other day. To just kind of review that. And I think we've got something later on about creating through the cash account. I think we're going to get to that later. Where we're creating our new SCCs for the new year. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay. So another thing is the OPU listing. Just to do this, this is just for review. And you go to report manager, and almost all these are in your report manager. They should be. OPU. There you go. You can just run your OPU report. There's nothing to, you just go ahead and just get that, run that. And there that is with your OPU codes, the description, your IRN, you want to review your IRNs. This first one here is checked office, the central office. So review that, so you have that. And then if you're budgeting, this is probably where you'd want to do before you start your budgeting, is to create your new account with your new SCCs. I was at a district last week, and we worked on creating these, and the treasurer really appreciated that. So it really makes it easier to do that through the system, the core account. And in the cash account, you see what we've got here, 90. Maybe we'll look for a green account or something. See what it comes up with. So we've got this one, and you want a mass add, and so maybe we're going on to 9925. You know, in this instance, our years are a little screwed up, but you might have 9924 and you want to go to 9925. So if you submit that, then it's going to create your cash account, your appropriation account, your expenditure account, and your revenue account. Now, the only thing you have to be careful of is if your original description, say if this had an original description that said FY22, then when you create your accounts for that next year, it's still going to have that FY22. And so what you might need to do is find all your accounts that are FY22. We can download those, make a little report, and we do that in the field names. You download that, and then in Excel, you can go ahead and update the names, do a find, replace all, and then you can load those back in using your mass load. Say it was for expenditures. You have your file CSV version, and you'd load it up as an expenditure account. We can definitely help with that. So like I did the same thing. I was involved with budgeting, and we talked about this, and we created all those accounts for all the new STCs that the treasurer needed. And they really thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I do too, because it makes it quick and easy. And especially with a mass load, you can download it, change all your fiscal years, upload it. It just, just always trying to make, find a way to make, everything simpler, because there's plenty to do during the day. Okay. So after you would do that, you do your budgeting scenarios, and then you kind of regenerate. There's like a circled arrow after you create your new account. Circled arrow will bring in all those new accounts into that. So that will make sure everything's included, your new accounts as well as your your standard accounts. So that helps with getting everything budgeted for. So the next step is to close out your purchase orders, and you just want to find the ones with the remaining encumbrances left. The best practices is to close those out and then create new ones for fiscal year 25. Anything that does have a remaining encumbrance, that's going to be listed on the account with a carryover encumbrance. So if you did have something, maybe in an expenditure, you had something left over, if you looked at this, so that's going to be under that carryover encumbered. That would pull in from last year if you had anything left in there, if you don't close them out. All right, so I have some nice little mini seminar on how to close out purchase orders. So if you have something that's open and it has never been invoiced, you can do amend and click on the cancel, which looks like the delete button, and then that will close that out. So an example of that one, we don't do this one, I don't think, too often. I'm going to set it up as we want invoiceable true. And I think it was, yeah, PO total is 15, total remaining encumbrance is 15. So it's never been invoiced. So we can go in there. We're going to amend. And then go down here. This is canceling the line item. Remember, this says we're in September 21. So I'm just going to cancel it out on, let's see if I have the date. I'm just going to say 9/30/21. I'm going to cancel that there. So, yeah. Sometimes I think we have to refresh our screen. That's not the one. I don't think that's the one. It is the test one. It should have lined it out. It should have done that. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So now we can see, I just had a tab over to make it take. And so you can see that's where it will cross it out. So that's one way to close out the purchase order. So, and then it shouldn't say invoiceable. Yeah, sometimes it's like if you go off the screen and go back on it, it might kick into gear, but that should cancel it out. And then the other one, if it was partially paid or closed or archived, let's see, that's partially paid invoices in a closed or archived posting period. And there is a rule that's set to prevent opening previously closed period. An AP invoice is created to cancel. I think this is the most commonly used method to close out purchase orders, is just to go through and do an invoice and cancel out, just do a canceling invoice to close that PO out. And then selecting cancel full as your status. Okay, and then the other way to do it is if the last partially paid invoice is in an open posting period, and then you can actually go into that invoice and you kind of have to scroll over to the end and hit the full button. So I've got an example of that as well. Invoice for this guy for $50. So as you can see, that hasn't been paid on yet. So I'm viewing it, and then it was paid on partially, but I want to close it. So I just go over to this action, and I want to change the action from partial to full. So I'm just going to, and it even tells you what it's going to do, change status from partial to full. And then I'm just going to hit that, and then that changes this. And there's no save button, it just automatically does that. And then that should close out that PO. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 3, 4, 5, 7. Okay, so it's this guy right here. And I'm trying to, this guy. So you can see he's not invoiceable. So that's another way to do it. But you have to have an invoice partially paid in an open period. So that's the only way you can do that. Most of the time I see districts just go through and do canceling invoices and just closing them out. But there's a couple ways to do that. Also, sometimes if you get stuck, like something's in an old fiscal year or something like that, you can add a line item if you can edit it, and you can add a line item. We usually do like add a line item for a penny and just put like close PO, and you add that, and then you can do a closing invoice for that, and then that will close the PO out. Okay, so the other thing, after you've dealt with your open POs, then you can review your old disbursements. So if you have checks from an old period, then, and of course, this is the perfect instance to look at this, because let's see, that was the one I ran an outstanding purchase order. And so running that, then you can see all the POs that need to be addressed. Of course, it's a training instance. There's 56 pages of them. And then here's the one for outstanding disbursements. Those are all in the report manager. So you can see it's like, oh, if I've got a check outstanding since 2019, I'm going to need to deal with that. So if you need assistance with that, just contact us and we can help you do that, reconcile and receipt it back in type thing, and repay it out. So it's always a good policy to deal with these before an auditor questions them. It's one less question from the auditors, and one less thing. If you deal with it up front, then you don't have to deal with it, when the auditor's there. Okay, then if you need to add or customize monthly report bundles, maybe you have something in there that needs the SEC changed, or maybe a date changed. You can do that. Oh, here's the one with a cash account. So the one with the report bundle. So say you're in here, and that's the food service one. I think I might have done one of these guys where I edited it, and then I forget if it was this one or what report it was, and probably wasn't that one. It's this one. I had something where I had a date on it. So if you have something, might have been the one with a date, because I know that one would have had a date. Okay, so say it's this, and there's a date, and you need to change that. Maybe we just need to update that with 2025. And then to save that, you just have to hit continue, and it will save it for that date. There, that updated the date. So if you have something like that in your report bundle, then go ahead and update that. Remember to save it again. And if you update this report in your bundle, that doesn't affect the main report in your report manager. It just affects the report within your report bundle. That's a good thing to keep in mind. And here we talked about those accounts, which we did a review of. We talked about the mass ad. All right, we already reviewed that. Maintenance of effort, if you need to do that, there is a nice handy SSDT filtered, SSDT MOE, which they've created for all our districts. There's a budget summary for MOE, which already exists in the report manager. So that's a good one to use for your maintenance of effort. Now, moving forward, you can open July 2024. I've seen several districts that have already done that, and they're already starting to create their requisitions and purchase orders with their July date on that. July should be open and not current. So just get a jump on the new fiscal year. Okay, and then for the requisitions, make sure they have either been converted to POs or deleted. All right, so that's our prep. Plenty to do. And then you have your standard month-end closing process. Okay, and under the one thing is, if you, a lot of districts tend to just do their reconciliation under Excel, and you have to make sure that you do it in redesign for June, because that's a part of your submission. So that would be under your periodic cash reconciliation. I just threw one in there. This would actually be dated June. It only let me bring up July because that was an open period. So I just kind of threw some numbers in there and created one. And that gets open here. So you just select your posting period, and then I just threw a couple numbers in there just to make sure it balanced out. At the bottom, you know, you'd put in, make sure your entered balance equals your fund balance, and then we know you tie. And then remember up here, there are, if you have outstanding checks, you would need to enter things here. And if there's any cash in transit, usually it's the outstanding checks that need to be, you know, you need to remember to enter just any of the white fields. Everything else in the kind of that blue-gray is, you know, that's a total field. So, and you would just kind of, you know, input something down here. So if you need something in there, add the amount, the description, and you add it, and then it pops that right in there. You save it, and then you can print that. And that goes here. You can just print that. And it's a nice handy dandy cash rec. I like the format of this, and you know, you can sign off on it and all that. So it looks nice and official. There's your cash rec. So you may need to do that extra, or you may already be doing it. If you get started on it, and even if it's just you do it in Excel, and then you just kind of copy it into redesign, it's going to be there, and then you just need to update your figures. Okay, we all know our month-end closing steps. And then fiscal year end closing, the cash rec, which we just talked about, that has to be done. It's pulled for the EMIS file. The big change this year is the federal assistance summary and the federal assistance detail. This is not required for EMIS, the EMIS extract this year. There was kind of an outcry, we should say, that don't delete that. I use that for something else. So they had deleted it like 1 week, SSTT did, and then they reinstalled it a week or two later because districts use that for other purposes. I'm in the EMIS extract, so there's some helpful tips on that. It's still in there. It's just not going to be in your fiscal year end file. And I did some research. I found a source. I'm not sure how reliable the source is, but it said it had been raised from 750 to $1 million. I'm going to let you do your own detective work. I asked SSDT, and they said, "Oh, we're not dealing with that anymore. So, please research." So I'm also saying, please research just to, make sure that's a valid statement. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's your federal citizenship. Okay. And then the civil proceedings you need to do, and that is, just kind of enter everything. If you don't have anything, just the NAs and zeros, and then save it is fine. The EMIS SOAP service configuration you need to verify that it says 2024. System configuration, EMIS SOAP service configuration. So that would be 2024 in our case. Make sure it pulls the right year. Again, that's system configuration. And then it's this EMIS SOAP, just look for EMIS. And if you need any assistance, we can help you with that. Okay. And then under the extract menu, select EMIS and click on the generate extract file. That's going to create an SEQ sequential file to be uploaded into the data collector. And then we have data collector instructions, or many districts ask us to assist them with loading those. And of course, we don't mind at all. It tends to be confusing. So that's under extracts, EMIS, and it's pretty simple. You just make sure you have the right fiscal year. This one doesn't have 24 because it's the old demo file. So you'd select 24 and then generate that. Okay. Now, deadlines. We all know we want to hit the deadlines. So our financial collection, the deadline is actually August 30th, but we always like these to get, years closed and submitted as soon as possible. We have a large amount of our districts have their years closed and have their EMIS files submitted by the end of the second week in July. That's usually accomplished. Also, a gentle reminder, if you don't have your 5-year forecast done, that's coming up here on 5/31, just a few days away. So please be mindful of that. Okay, when you close your period for June, you're closing June and getting your June reports. You're also closing the fiscal year. That means you're going to get a lot of reports. Here they all are. And they're going to be for the fiscal year. So if you're running a purchase order detail report for the entire fiscal year, that's going to take a long time. So any of these that is, civil proceedings not going to take long, but anything like a FinDIP for the entire fiscal year, it's going to take a long time. So we also always like to caution the district, make sure you've got June as your current, you've got June, you're closing June, and wait until your reports are all generated. If you have a lot of report bundles, that's also going to compound, the time that it's going to take to get the report bundles done, to get your monthly reports done, and to get all your fiscal year reports done. I always think, if it's something that you do, maybe you've got a nice long meeting, this is a good time to close June. Okay. Set that guy up to close and, come back to your meeting, check, and 10 to 1, it's going to be done. So that's going to be in your file archive, and your fiscal year reports archive would be in there. So this doesn't have it because it's demo. So then you'd have June reports there. You'd have your fiscal year. You can check on these. And then you'd make sure that, scroll down here and scroll down there. Usually a void report is going to be your last one. So as long as you see the void, and then you can also go over and see a timestamp of when it was completed, and just make sure that's all completed with a timestamp. And then the same thing on the fiscal year report. Okay. And, that should be all set. You can also go under your job scheduler. And then if you've got any scheduled jobs, you can double check and see, oh, that's completed, and this is when it was completed. And if there's anything still pending generating, let that complete before you change your posting period to July. Here. So, all right. And then we close, and then after you close, here's my nice warning again in yellow. We've had districts move on before things have been completed, and that wasn't good. You can reopen June and reclose it. We've had the talk about if you're going to do that, if you're changing anything material, please rerun all the reports. If you're just doing something like maybe a name or something like it, a description title or something, then, it's probably not necessary to rerun everything, but definitely if you're changing figures, it is. So then we can start with next year. Oh, also, if you're reopening June, there is a rule in there to prevent opening of a previously closed posting period. If you're having trouble, we can look and see if that rule is enabled in your district, and we can, take that off, and then you'd be able to reopen that. So the first thing you're going to want to do after your June is closed, and then you're ready to move into July. You've already been creating your requisitions and your purchase orders, got everything all straightened out for closing out your year end, and then go into your transactions, pending transactions, to see if you've got your transactions for the first payroll in July. And please go ahead and post those. Also, if you are a district that has a way of numbering your purchase orders, for example, your fiscal year 25 purchase orders start with 25. We will need to go into the system configuration, transaction configuration, and update that. So, for example, you'd update it from 24,999 to 25,999. We can help you out with that as well. Usually it's purchase orders I see it most with. And any kind of account filters, which you might have SDCs on. You want to review your account filters. There is, I don't think I have it in the test instance, but we do have a report which will print out the filter name, the name of the filter, the description, and what comprises what's in it. So there's a nice report that we can upload if you don't have it. You can run that and just kind of like scan down that. So what you've got in your account filters and see if anything needs changing. Okay, and then if you have requisition prefixes, say you have something that is 8024 if you're athletic director, you want to update that to 8025. I've got a little screenshot of this. It's from a prior year, and it doesn't say 8024, it says 8022, but AD there, and then that would tell you what number is going to be used for your requisition, and then comma, no space, but it would see all of the athletic director requisitions there. So there you can see I changed it from 22 to 23. In this case, 24 to 25. So you just want to be aware of that when you start processing for the new year. All right. So there are auditor jobs scheduled. HCC takes care of that. They're done sometime in July. Our systems manager makes sure those are done and processed. If you use WebGap, please submit a request if you need updating for that. And then there is a GAP program under Extract, which you would pull the file out and then load into WebGap. That is located, Extracts, GAP. And you just pull down your year, our case would be 24, and then submit it, and then it just creates that file. It's very easy, and then you just need to submit it into WebGap. So in the new fiscal year, you'll need to do your certification reports and certificate available balances, humanity certificate, and we talked about mass adding the grant account already before you budget, updating your filters, and dealing with future requisitions. So they are a comment on this at the bottom, this attachment. SSDT, I have seen them send some things about we're working on adding attachments. I'm pretty sure that was a goal for this fiscal year for them, or not fiscal year, but calendar year, to have these attachments included. They're on requisitions, but that's all they're on right now. Also, we have this requisition approval workflow, and I think that we only have one district on it so far, but we would be glad to help you out with that whenever you're ready to address that, if you want to do that. All right, so there's my easy button. It's not really easy, but you know, it's by the time you get done, it'll be you will be ready to get out into the sunshine. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just a couple minutes early. I'm going to stop sharing, see any other chat questions, if there's any chat questions. Okay, Greg said, sorry, I'm not tracking on the DEW instruction. Are we supposed to remove it? Leave it or other? Okay, and that was just leave it. No harm in just leaving it there. All right. So are there any other questions? We're always here to help. If you have individual questions,
Belinda,
please feel free to submit a ticket.
Belinda, is your hand raised?
Yes,
Linda, which question?
I have a couple of questions. One, you said that there's a rule about preventing opening of the previous closed period. If it's not enabled, we have to go check. Where do we go check that to see if that's enabled or not? And then my second question is,
rules.
yeah, right after that, you had that we could go after July posting period is open. We can go to pending and do our pending transactions. When we close June in the fiscal year, does it automatically make July current? Or do we need to go in and make current?
Well, it depends if you've made it active yet or not. So let me go ahead and share again. All right, so your first question was, what was that again?
Where does it tell us if that posting period is enabled or not?
If
they're allowed to reopen closed posting periods.
Oh, the rules. Yes, that's right. Okay, so rules, system rules, and then let's see if it has posting. Okay. Purchase order. Deleting here. Transaction. Trying to think where that is. They set in there. Might not.
It's for reopening June.
Right. Okay. Your invalid posting period open. Prevent closing last fiscal year posting periods out of order. There's one there. Prevent opening a previously closed posting period. So that, I think we're discussing that third one there. So prevent opening a previously closed posting period. So in this case, it's false. But if you wanted to enable it or disable it, it's that button. And then you can validate it if you want, okay? And then you would save it. That's how you change rules. I'm just gonna change it back to what it was. Validate that. Just info and save that. Okay. That's that status enabled. Okay, and then that's where that is. Okay, and then the other one is the posting period. So for this one, we'll just say, you know, if they have July on there, which is what I would have done, but we're talking about. And then, so this is, again, our instance is way back in time. So 2023, we'll just say. So if you click the box, you'll make it current and open it in one fell swoop. But if you just want to open it, like if you're just creating recs, you would just do this, open but not current, and just create that. Okay. All right.
Okay, so if we have July open before we close June, it doesn't automatically switch it to current after we close June.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I always like to look at the column right here. So, and if it's open, it's going to be true, or current. It's going to have that green highlight. Okay. And then, so this one is current. So if we wanted to switch it to July, so say, I already created this because I wanted to put in my recs and POs for the new fiscal year. So to make it current, then I'm all done, I'm closed and everything. right there. Oh, and Jim says it also tells you what's current at the top of the screen in the top right corner. This is making this period current will result in changing the current fiscal year. Okay, you want to continue. Okay. And so you change that, and as Jim stated, up here in the top right corner tells you what is current as well. But then you also have the current column, you have the highlight bar that tells you what's current, but then you also, a nice thing to do would be say, okay, all of these months are open. There are some districts we have that, you know, they're not closing the month. But then, you know, they just have to go through and close and wait till that file archive file is complete on the whatever month it is they're closing, and they just have to check here, make sure you've got your void down in the bottom here, and then go on. It's going to take a little time, and then go on with your next month to close. So, but just please don't be in a rush, because there are some reports, and if you've added reports or created extra bundles, like I did a report bundle lecture about that, where you can create some things, and especially, I think it's one of the FinDebt reports where it has a beginning period balance and ending period balance for the account. And if you change your current period, it's pulling the data from the current period, whatever current period it's in. And if you change that, it's gonna you're gonna have reports that aren't correct, and we don't want that. So just kind of a word to the wise, just make sure everything's complete. Give yourself some time, give the system some time to complete everything. And for June, it's going to take extra long to complete this process. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Excellent, great. Go ahead. And any other questions? All right. And then for our meeting today, we had our USAS going to 10 o'clock, and we are exactly on schedule. And then we're going to take a short break until 10:30. And if you're staying through to the USPS side, you know, just feel free, go take a break, whatever you need to do. And then we're starting back again at 10:30. I'm just going to go ahead and pause the recording until that time. We'll see you back here in half an hour.
I'm just gonna give it 2 more minutes till 10:30 in case there's any stragglers.
It's not nice to call me a straggler.
Hey, there you are.
Oh, you've been on here for a while, Colleen.
Yeah, I can't figure out how to turn my camera off, so you just got to look at me.
Yeah, it's the stop video. If you've got a stop video button,
Should
I
be down at
think
the
that
bottom.
will do it.
Oh, I was afraid if I did the stop video, I
It's
would
at the bottom.
mess you guys up.
Nope.
No,
I
you're
don't
not
have
a
that much
presenter.
control. I think I do.
Oh, one other comment I'd like to make is if anybody needs CEU credits, we do have certificates that we can create and send to you if you need that for your treasurer's license or whatever you need. So just let us know, pop in a ticket, and we'll be glad to create that for you.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Should be the checklist.
Maybe just a tiny bit larger.
All right.
It's okay. It's
I
just a
couldn't make
small
it.
one.
Couldn't open it totally because then I got 2 pages on one and I didn't want that.
That's perfect.
All right, well, it is 10:31. We will go ahead and get started. I will be going over the USPS fiscal year-end checklist. And then we'll be focusing mostly on advance, but we'll just walk through all of this. Okay, so biggest note up here is that you must complete your sorry, I got distracted by the chat. Can everybody see this okay? I just want to make sure everybody's seeing it. Okay. You must complete your STRS advance before you can process any payroll in July. You will not be able to complete July payrolls until it's completed. So once you've done your last pay in June, you need to get your advance done, with the exception of the one district that does not run advance, and they are set up to be able to bypass that. All right, you want to process any NC1s, so life insurance. So again, this is any employee that has a board paid life insurance over $50,000, you have to post, if they are leaving this year, let me back up. If they are leaving at the end of the fiscal year, so whether they're retiring or resigning, but you're getting ready to process their final pay of the year, you want to process that NC1. If you do not have a calculator, we have one on our website that will help you calculate the cost of that NC1. I can show you that real fast. It's going to be under, right now, it's under finance and then state software redesign. And down here under USPS, we have USPS Life Insurance Guide and Calculator. It is a spreadsheet, walks you through, it's plugging in numbers and it'll give you that amount. You want to make sure that you do this before their final pay. There is some manual adjustments that you can do if you fail to process that on their final pay, but it's less than fun. So just encourage you to get that processed. To do that, you can do this in future or current, and you would just create, find your employee, whatever you want in here. The pay type is life insurance premium. You'll do a unit of 1 and then whatever that rate is, whatever that total amount is that you need to charge them. If it's, $100. If you try to save it with the applies for retirement box checked, it will error out on you because it does not apply for retirement. So you just need to uncheck that and save it. Just as a reminder, NC1s do not inflate your total gross for the payroll. It is it's for W-2 purposes only, but they will get charged Medicare tax on it at the time that you post it. Step 2 is verifying that you are out of advance mode. I actually went through everybody at the end of last year, and if you were in advance, I contacted you and we worked through it. So you can go ahead and check that one off because it's done. Yes, Gail, it's over 50,000 only. So if you have board paid life insurance, it's only 40,000. You do not have to process an NC1. It's only if it's over 50,000 and it's board paid. And you only have to do this if these people are leaving, retiring, resigning at the end of the fiscal year. And that holds true if they leave at any point during the year. If they decide to leave in September, you would want to process their NC1 if they had it over 50,000. We talk about it at fiscal year end and calendar year end, but it's kind of a year-long thing. You can go ahead and start running your STRS advanced reports now. It's recommended that you start looking at those so you can start clearing up any errors or warnings. Correct, Anita. It is not fun. It is very much the opposite. Manual posting of NC1. Do not recommend. It's possible. It just kind of haunts you for a while. But your advanced reports, you can start running those right now. And if you have warnings or errors, you can start cleaning those up before you're, up against the wall where you've got to get it completed, and so you can run your July payroll. Next up, we have EMIS staff reporting. Some of this actually does not have to be, most of this does not have to be done before you close your year. It's just in here, we generally do an EMIS little review later on in the year. But this stuff isn't due until your final EMIS reporting, which is due first week of August. But you want to make sure that you have cleared all of your long-term illness. Likely you have already done this, because if you haven't, your EMIS person has probably come to you and said, hey, there's a bunch of errors. But just as a quick review, you can do this by going to Core Employee. You can add the long-term illness on your grid here if you want. It is not required. It'll still process when you do the mass change, but it's an easy way to see if you've got anybody that has anything in here. And you can see I've got my person right here that's got 20 days. But you can quickly remove this by going to mass change. Under load definition, it's already in here. It's going to be SSDT's clear employee long-term illness. And then I click over here. I want the execution mode. And and it tells me, because it's going to change everybody on my grid here, which is fine because I want it all gone anyways. I have new long-term illness to input. Submit my mass change. I just love demo files. This won't happen to you. This is, I do not have mass change turned on in this demo apparently. But for you, it should clear this out. And then the next step here is to enter new long-term illness. So what is long-term illness? It is 15 or more consecutive absences. So if they're absent or if they're out sick for 10 days and they come back for a day and then they're out for 5, it doesn't count. That was not 15 consecutive days. If they come back for half a day, still resets it. There is a report that you can run. Unfortunately, there's not a report that tells you, hey, here's all your long-term illness people, and this is how many days they have. That would be too easy. You got to work for it. But you can run the ABS 101 report, which will help you narrow down your staff. So that is under reports, absence reports, ABS 101 report. You can, sort this however you want, probably employee name. Put in your fiscal year dates. And then there's all kinds of sorting you can do. You probably only want active job statuses. You probably want everybody here. You only want absences. And in this case, we only want doc, other, or sick. I really, actually, to be fair, I'm not sure that we would want other in here either, probably just doc and sick. And when you run this, I'll try to back up my dates here and see if I can get anything. It gives you, there is an other reason. So this is the report that you get. I'll circle back to that, Colleen. This is the report you get. It gives every person's absence day. And so what you can do with this report is go through here and figure out whether or not they had consecutive days. Little time consuming, I understand. It doesn't tell you personal days. I believe last year I told you all very wrong. It's sick and doc. I don't believe that personal or vacation will count toward it. You'll get an EMIS error. Yes, it can be ran in Excel data. Yep. Another report that I like, I'll just show you this one real fast, is the ABS 103 is a summary report that you can do our, oh, that's, I just learned this week that the double click is, oh, it's working. Sometimes it's kind of broken. They're working on that. So you can run this report. It's set up the same way, except this is going to be a summary that you could look through here and look at their number of days that they had and easily point out the people that had 15 or more days that you might need to go take a second look at. If you have people that are hourly, that's obviously a little more complicated because you got to figure out how many days that would translate to. But this is a nice option to narrow down before you go in and run that ABS 101 report. And then from there, it's just drilling down to see if they were consecutive or not. I recommend, if it's possible, to kind of keep yourself a little note throughout the year of staff that you know are out, maternity leave, whatever, anybody that's running sick leave, might just be a nice little way to quickly find out who you need to look at. But once you have all of those people that had long-term illness of 15 consecutive days, so if they were out 15 days, they come back and then they're out for another 15, those get added together for a total of 30. And that goes on all year long. So anytime it's 15 days or more, you would add them together. But you would add that under core employee. And if I just go in and edit this person, it is all the way down here under state reporting, and then it's long-term illness. And you would just put in that total there. So again, if it's 15 days, they come back and then it's 15 more days, it's 30. But if it's 10 and then 5, nothing.
So I remember back when we had COVID, and COVID's still going around, but when they had there were 3 different reasons. There's COVID-1, COVID-2, COVID-3, and we used that other and then the subcategory to do other COVID-1, other COVID-2, other COVID-3. And so I can see why other could be included in that. But that was hopefully
yeah, Yeah, I guess it wouldn't hurt. You might just want to look closely at why that it's other.
Yeah.
I think I used other in different situations, but Colleen, to answer your question, you do have an absence type of other. I missed that comment.
So Tanya, we do the high teacher demand days as other. So, you know, if they do their conference, they get a 0.5. But I thought I checked into it before and I couldn't get that to go over to the state software side. So I've not used other
We
at
may
all.
just, yeah, we just may need to look at that because you should be able to post it. It's an absence. We can talk about it at another time.
Okay. That's what that's why I was inquiring about the other.
So you know, if you're posting other as an absence and it's for a conference day, then, you know, obviously that doesn't quite qualify for the long-term illness. So you just kind of have to know your district and whether or not you're using other and whether or not it would count for the long-term illness. But I know last year I had said incorrect information that I later found out. I was educated, that those vacation days, if you try to include, it's like if you force your employees to burn all of their time before they can take FMLA or whatever, you can't actually count those vacation days toward long-term illness. News to me. All right. So that is entering your long-term illness, and that's for this fiscal year. This just talks about how EMIS absence days and attendance days are calculated. It uses the calendars, and then it uses anything that's posted into the attendance. So it knows how many days they were actually there. If you need to do any adjustments, it's under core adjustments, and it kind of walks you through that. If you have CC or CJ records, you can put those in. Again, all of this has to be done before your EMIS coordinator does their final submission for this fiscal year. If you know staff are leaving, this one's important, and we have this, the EMIS reporting scenarios. It might have last year's dates on it, but on our, again, under state software redesign, we have USPS EMIS reporting scenarios. It's got 2023. The dates are wrong, but the information still stands. This kind of walks you through the different situations and when you would separate people and update their information. So print this off and have this handy, because if you know you have staff that are resigning June 30th, if you go ahead and report them on their position screen as separating from service, after the turn of the fiscal year and EMIS is done, you can go ahead and stop reporting them to EMIS. Otherwise, you have to carry them all of next year because you didn't report them as separated. And that information is on the position screen under EMIS related information. So you'd want to put in their separation date, their reason, and all of this other information would be entered in here. If you don't put it in, because if you don't find out until August 1st that somebody's not coming back, you update it then, you just have to keep reporting them for the rest of the fiscal year. Yes, even if you are going to continue paying them, you can enter all of this information. It will not prevent them from being paid. Just do not change their job status. That needs to remain active until you are done paying them. If you change this to anything but active, it will stop their stretch pay. So you don't want to do that until they're actually gone. Or they're done being paid, I should say. All right, have I answered all the questions in the chat?
That's it for now.
Shouldn't
right,
have
next up-
invited me.
Hey, you keep it interesting. At least you talk to us. I know you're awake. Okay, next up is your month-end closing. I'm not going to go into this in great detail. You do this 11 other times throughout the year. You can run your SIRS monthly report. It's optional, it's not required. At some point, we'll stop saying that because Classic is long gone. Same thing with your STRS monthly report. You can run that, it's not required. You're going to balance your payroll account, or whoever balances the payroll account. That's your standard practice. If it is the correct time, make sure you do your benefit update and projection. Again, do this when it fits for your district. It does not have to be done in order to close the fiscal year. We just have it on here as a reminder. Quarter closing. Again, same thing you always do. I recommend running your quarter report. Personally, I ran it every single payroll. At the very least, run it once a month. Just spend the extra couple of minutes running it and making sure everything looks good. I promise you it's easier to fix those things as soon as they happen versus 3 months from now when you don't remember what happened. So quarter report, just add it to your payroll checklist and just run it and make sure everything looks good. It'll take you 10, 15 minutes versus 3 hours or more later on. There's just some kind of notes in here on how to balance it. I'm not going to go through all of that right now. Number 15, all payroll item checks for the quarter should equal payroll items showing on the quarter report. You want to verify all of your transfers for federal and Medicare payments. This is just kind of your balancing. This is more just balancing your quarter report to what was actually posted in USAS. I don't know that I've ever seen a scenario where these aren't the same. Your W-2 report. Run and balance your W-2 report. Again, my recommendation would be do this monthly at the very least. Get those issues cleaned up as soon as they happen versus later on. There is a W-2 report reconciliation worksheet. If you do not have one that you're currently using, we can get that to you, but I imagine everybody at this point kind of has their own little process of balancing. Again, this is just more balancing your payroll item totals. To, if you have a spreadsheet where you're tracking everything, balance it to your W-2 report and your quarter report. Make sure everything looks good. If you have discrepancies or you find an error, by all means, enter a help desk ticket. We can look at it together and make sure we understand what happened. And if we need to do some sort of adjustment, we can do that. There is the audit trail report that you can run to kind of narrow down some of the things. At the end of the year, at the end of June, once everything's done, your outstanding payables should be empty. So you should be able to come out here to processing outstanding payables. And this should be empty because at the end of June, you should have paid, unless you have yearly stuff, which I don't think anybody has anything yearly, but if you do, your yearly would still be sitting out here, but you should have paid out every pay, monthly and quarterly items. Again, I every year I say I'm going to take this out and I never do because it's 9 times out of 10 not accurate. Your employer distribution does not always match what was actually posted in USAS, generally because you're having to make amends on the PO for various items like your insurance and whatnot to make it match the bill. Make sure that you do all of your quarterly submission forms. I think we're down to that's just your 941. For those of you that didn't notice, or you probably have by now, my understanding from all of you out there is that Ohio no longer requires their quarterly reconciliation. They are down to just an annual one. So I believe your only quarter end submissions is the 941. You can go ahead and look at your city withholdings to make sure all of that is looking good. You can take the total gross times the tax percentage and make sure that the amount withheld is correct. Sometimes you can have discrepancies because of mobile or split employees, but you would know, you should be able to pinpoint those people. You're going to run your ODJFS report and balance that. Once it's complete, you are going to generate that submission file and upload it to ShareBase. Rhonda usually sends out those. She'll probably do it early June. Okay. I know I just breezed right through all of that stuff, but if you have any questions before I go on to the next set of reports. Okay. These are fiscal year-end specific reports. Please, 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 please run these reports after you've ran your final pay in June. Run them, save them somewhere that you will find them later. Your auditors will ask for them. And if you do not have them and they're not asking for them until October, they're kind of difficult to replicate. So especially if you don't close June until, say, late July or August. So take the time, again, 15 minutes, and you're going to run, there's a handful of reports. You're going to run your surcharge report, which is for SCRS, and it's just a reference point. They will send you a bill, but SCRS reporting, SCRS surcharge, change your fiscal year, and you can generate, I would generate it in PDF and CSV. I personally used the CSV. I gave it to the accounts payable person, and they were able to use that to help them with their account codes when they went to pay the SCRS surcharge. So that's the benefit in running this report. So I would just take the time, run it PDF and CSV, save it in a file somewhere so you have it. Next up is the wage obligation report. This is usually used for GAAP conversions and your auditors and all of that. That is under reports, wage obligation, and you've got by account and by employee. Personally, I'd run them both, because I don't know which one. If you know which one the auditor always asks for, fine, run that one. This, you're going to run this as of 6/30/24. So it gives you what was true as of that date. You can, again, run this in PDF and CSV. They're probably going to want the CSV file because so they can manipulate it, but doesn't hurt to run both. So, and I would say you probably want this by employee name. You probably want, you can, however you want to do this, all appointment types, or you can run certified and then classified. I don't know. We have it listed for CSRS liability, but I feel like at some point, somebody told me they needed everybody on there. So I was recommending running it by classified and then all appointment types, and not necessarily certified by themselves. So you can do those 3 different ways, run it PDF and CSV. And then next up is the benefit obligation report. Again, both of these reports are hard to go back and recreate once you're deep into the new fiscal year. So that's why we tell you to go ahead and run them. That reports, benefit obligation, this is the same thing. You have obligation by account and by employee. I missed that comment. It pops up so fast.
Are we running these the 1st of July?
Yeah, so after your June 30th or your last pay in June, you're gonna want to run those. Yep. Benefit obligation, it's this same kind of setup. You can run it by various leave types. Probably only really need active employees, because if they're no longer active, if they're not earning anything, they don't really need to be on there. You can choose how you run it by the sort option. I personally don't know the best way to run that. It's been a while, but budget account is the default. Can't go wrong there, can you? And this is the same way you can run this in CSV and PDF. So I recommend, and the report as of, again, you're going to want this as of 6/30. So as of your final payroll. So just take the time, run those as part of this checklist before you close your fiscal year, save them. When you close your month of June, it will generate these reports and put them in your file archive. But like I said, if you're not closing June until, later in August or whatever, it can change what's on those reports, because it'll give you real-time information. So just
Colleen had a question in the chat about, did you say we're running the SERS liability
Yeah.
report the 1st of July?
Yeah, she asked.
Okay,
Yep,
all right,
we addressed
sorry.
it.
I'm going between tickets and.
You're okay. Okay. So any questions on that before we get into the lovely STRS Advance? Okay. STRS Advance, aka your STRS annual report. We get questions on that every year. You'll get a notification from STRS telling you that the annual report is due August, whatever. That is the advance. So if you've sent your advance, then you've sent your annual report. STRS Advance employees flagged as full-time. They must have at least 120 days to be granted a full year of service credit. If they need to be marked as part-time when they're 450. If they're only part-time, and then it'll do a calculation to determine that. We'll talk about merging files. So if you have employees that are going to be paid out early, so they're retiring and you're going to pay them out on, I don't know, the first pay in July, you would want to go ahead and update their compensation screen to reflect that one final payment. That way the advance comes out correctly. If you go changing it and in the middle of advance, it can kind of mess things up. So get all of those calculations in early. If you know in advance that you have to dock somebody, you can enter that into future pay. So, and by somebody, I'm talking somebody that's going to go into advance. So you can go into future and just put that person in as 1 dock day or 2 dock days or whatever it is. And then you can run your advance reports and it will account for that dock. And then you can delete it after that if you're not quite ready to dock them yet. or you can use an effective date on your future pay. So it pulls in on the payroll that you actually want to dock them. You can still dock later on if you need to, because you don't know right now that you have to dock anybody. It will mess with your STRS advance amount paid back, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so what do you mean the date?
So see how it says there, if you'll know you'll be docking any employee during advance? Like,
Oh, okay. Once you've run advance, so you are going to run your advance after you've run your final June payroll. So if you know you have to dock somebody in advance, so generally a teacher, in the month of July or August, while they're in advance mode, then you would want to put those docs in future pay. So before you run advance, so before you run that actual advance file, it will pick that up and it account for it in the calculation.
okay.
All right, so let's talk about the STRS advanced reports. So those are under reports, STRS, and then STRS advanced. You are going to enter your starting date for the academic year and ending date. So 7/1 to 6/30 usually does the job. There are 3 different reports. You have your fiscal year to date report. That is going to have every single employee that you paid that contributed to STRS. Whether they're a sub, a coach, a teacher, admin, whatever, they're all going to be on that report. The generated advanced positions report is just the employees that are going into advance. In order for an employee to go into advance, there's some criteria. They have to have their days worked equal their work days. Those have to equal. They have to have a contract amount left to be paid and pays left on their contract. That will force them into advance. So that means they have to have worked all of their days by the end of June. So typically these are all of your teachers. If you have administrators that are on contract from August through July and they have work days in the month of July, they should not be advancing because they have days to work in the month of July. But if your teachers or your admin, if they finish if all of their days are on their calendar and they work them all by the end of June, they should be advancing. If they are not, 9 times out of 10, it's because the system did not pick up all of their work days. So just show you. If you look at their compensation, this has to equal this in order for them to advance. It's not at all uncommon for some of these days to be missed, especially at the beginning of the year. Depending on how you're running your payrolls, you might miss 1, 2, 5, whatever, and it would cause these not to equal, and then they would not be advancing. If you have 1 or 2 people that this is happening to, the quick, easy fix is, and you know they've worked all their days, and you know it's just a matter of the days didn't get picked up when you ran the payroll. You would just come in here and you can, well, maybe I should find somebody I haven't messed with 600 times. Of course, there's nobody in here decent to look at. Oh, that's a non-contract, I don't want that. Well, anyways, if these didn't match and you knew that they worked them all and you needed to correct it, you could edit, come down here to your compensation adjustment and create, and you would say days worked, and you're going to put in the difference. So if this right here was only showing 89 days, you would put in 10. I lost my little box there. Hang on. You would put in 10 right here, and save it, and that would increase their days worked by 10 and make them match, and that should force them into advance. So the last report is the non-advanced positions report. So that is anybody that is not going into advance. So those are typically your administrators that work in the month of July. Those people will not be advancing. So it is important that you look closely at these reports. Please don't assume that the system is correct. It's wrong a lot for various reasons. And I believe on the checklist, and these reports can be ran as much as you want until they are complete. Like just generating the report doesn't do anything. It's when you actually create the submission file that kind of finalizes everything. So run them as much as you need to. Some items that you want to look at. This demo data is terrible, like Rhonda was saying earlier. It's significantly outdated. It's impossible to get anything usable out of it. So I do have an example of these reports from a district that shall remain nameless. This is what the fiscal year to date report looks like. This is the information. This is their employee name, social. What you're looking at on here is you want to make sure their service credit is correct. So anybody that's completed their contract, they're going to be at 100%. If they had 120 days or more, they're typically at 100% unless they're part-time, and then that varies. It'll go by the STRS credit decision tree. 0% is okay for retirees. So if you have somebody that is a rehired retiree, sorry, I cannot highlight on here, but you see this right here where it says yes. So if they're a rehired retiree, they should have a yes here, and they will be 0%. They're not earning any additional service credit. So that is okay. These people that are, odd percentages, they're usually coaches, part-time people, subs, whatever. You can make sure that their STRS days are correct. You can follow the STRS decision tree to make sure that it's the correct percentage, which is on STRS's website. Let me go back to. So you're checking service credit, number of days. So your teachers, if they're 183 days, they should be showing 183 days. I think, and I did not test this out, I think if you run it right now, I don't think the days will reflect, like if you still have days to pick up on your payroll, I think it will show like what's true right now and not necessarily what will be true by the end of June. So if you're running it now, these days may not be, exact. Like if they're supposed to work 183 days, it's not going to show on here. You want to check earnings. So the earnings are listed on here. Generally speaking, this is their contract amount, with the exception of maybe people that have extended days that you're paying as a miscellaneous. If you're anything miscellaneous, it's going to inflate this. Your administrators or anybody that's got pickup on pickup, their earnings are actually inflated by that pickup amount. So you kind of have to do some math to figure out if the amount is correct. So you would, like, if somebody has full pickup on pickup, then you would take their earnings times 14% and add the 14%, add into their contract amount or what their earnings were, and that should be what their earnings show on here. The non-taxed deposit amount is the amount of their 591 and or 691 that's been paid for I want to say this fiscal year, but it's not really this fiscal year because July and August go toward the prior year. But that's what this column right here is. Sorry, this I wish this was a PDF. Let's save it as a PDF so I can highlight. Okay. I still can't highlight. Well, that's not handy. Anyways, the non-tax deposit pick amount, this column right here, that's what's been paid so far. And then you have your advance amount. This is the amount of STRS contributions that you will pay in the months of July and August. And then this is a grand total for the employee. This one doesn't have it, but if they have zero amount in this advanced column, that means that they are either an administrator who's not advancing, or it's somebody who's not on stretch pay. So there's no contract amount saying that you still owe them. So they are not advancing. So zero in this column is okay. So this is what it looks like. And then this is your totals page, your report totals. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Okay, so how to balance it. Last year, I created a spreadsheet that I hope you find helpful. If you have your own way to balance, by all means, that's totally fine. I just created this because I found districts didn't really have a way to do this. So we sent this out as part of on the meeting. So if you didn't get it, can't find it, whatever, just send us a ticket or an email and I can send it out. This first tab is kind of instructions on like what everything is. What are all these different tabs? But this first one tells you how to fill out the third tab here. So I've kind of tried to color code and tell you where to put things, but you should be able to follow these instructions and balance that STRS advance report. So first thing you're going to do is run your STRS advanced fiscal year-to-date report, which is what this report is right here. These are the totals that I'm looking at. So then you're going to enter the amount. So this blue box right here, you're going to enter these numbers on this tab in these two blue boxes. So you got your tax, non-tax, and your advance amount. And I apologize. I wish that I could actually walk through this, but our demo data is not up to snuff. So I did do it with a district, but I obviously can't show you that information. And it did work. I was able to balance out by the time I got to the end. So you're going to take this information. So if I pull this up, so you're going to plug in. Sorry, I know I'm making the screens super tiny, but I want to be able to see both. So I'm just plugging this information in. So 1530231.63 and 331.80302. So plug those numbers in. You see that there's calculations already built in here. So if it's gray, please do not make any changes there. It's a formula. So that's step number one. And then coming back over here. So you want to find out how much you've already paid to STRS. So this is a combination of the 591 and the 691. So to get your 591 totals, you can follow these steps right here to get that amount. And USPS can find it. So you're going to go to reports, payment transaction status report. You want to sort by the payroll item code. And then the payment transaction type, this depends. I'm going to venture to say most people are they're electronic transfers because you're not sending a check to STRS. You want all statuses. Your issue start and stop date, you want to go by the fiscal year. So 7/1 of 23 to, sorry, 6/30 of 24. And then down here, you want to select your 591 and move that over and generate this report. I'm not going to get anything if I run it, but it will give you, go really far back if it will give me something. Nothing. Useless information. Anyways, it's going to give you a report of all of the electronic transfers that you created to STRS, and you were going to plug that number into, I think it says it on here. Enter the total from this report into the 591 paid green cell. So back over here, you would enter that figure right here. Then you're going to follow the instructions to get your 691 total, which you have to actually get from USAS, not in payroll, because it's a board paid amount. So just in case anything got changed, I would recommend going with USAS. So in USAS, you would under transactions, disbursements, you can find your vendor. I'm just going to pick a random one because, and then in the dates section, you're going to enter your parameters. So you're wanting July 1st of 23 to June 30th of 24. You put the 2 dots in between it, and that's in between. And that should give you everything that was paid to that vendor. Now, hopefully that vendor only has your STRS employee board paid contributions on it. I have seen where we've run this report and there's maybe some random payment that was, you know, I don't even know, it was a miscellaneous payment made to STRS for some reason. That threw off our calculations. So once we found that, we were able to remove it, enter the final amount into this column, this cell right here, and it balanced. So just be mindful of that. If you're using that STRS vendor for any other reason, you just want to find those amounts and pull them out. This will give you an amount paid for this fiscal year. Now it's going to be higher than what you're trying to balance to, because it's including advance amounts from last year. So you have to back out last year's advance amounts that you paid. Well, how do you do that? So I got instructions on that. So you can run the STRS check advance report to get those amounts. So back in, not here, in USPS, you're going to go to reports, STRS reporting, and then check STRS advance. And I will tell you this, these start and end dates are deceiving. It is not your pay dates, unfortunately. It goes by the start date of your first pay in July and the end date of your last pay. I'm going to say in August, but whenever they came out of advance. If your teachers, if their final pay of last contract was August 30th, then you're going to want to use the end date of that payroll. That may not always be the case. Maybe they're paid out on August 15th and their first payroll is August 30th. And then in that case, you'd want to use the end date from the August 15th payroll. But when you plug in those and you can run this, You're going to generate it and it's going to give you a total at the bottom. And that figure, that's what you paid back to STRS for your advance for the prior fiscal year. And you're going to plug that number in right here. And you cross your fingers and hope that this becomes a 0. And right here it says that if cell B12 is 0, so B12, if that's 0, then your STR advance balances. If it's not 0, you need to go into core adjustments and look for any adjustments to the amount withheld on your 591 or 691. So I've got some instructions on how you can look for those. And then you put them in here and then hopefully then this becomes 0. So I know that was
Tanya, for
kind
the
of,
amount that you're backing out, do you put that in as a positive or a negative? For the
hold
peach.
please. I'm pretty sure it's a positive, but hang on, let me check my let me check on my test that I did.
Okay.
I don't want to lie to you.
I'm not sure if you took care of it within the calculation.
I think
or
I
if you
did.
have to-
Yeah, you put it in as a positive, yes,
Okay.
because my calculation backs it
Okay.
out. Yeah. So
Perfect.
this will be a positive. Good question. And I'll just show you, like, this is my sample that I did on a district, and you can see that these are real numbers that I pulled from their actual files, and I was able to balance out. So I know I went over that quickly and it's kind of a lot. I do think these instructions are pretty good. I had a couple of districts use it last year and they said it was good. If you use it and find issues with it or something that could be more clear, please let me know. I'm happy to update it. And of course, if you have trouble, you know where to find this. All right, this last tab, just trying to give you some tips on how to balance the actual the advance amount. So the amount that you're telling STRS you're going to send to them in the month of July and August for the prior fiscal year. So first of all, any questions on what I just went over before I go over this one? If I haven't lost everybody yet. Okay, so for this one, and this one's, you know, a little, can be a little tricky. You have to know your district. You're going to go into core. This is how I would do it. I go to core compensation, and I'm going to click on contract compensation. And then I listed on here the various items that you want to make sure that you have on there. So you want their employee ID, their social, their name, the label, if you're using the compensation label to help distinguish between fiscal years. It's just sometimes helpful just in case you have old compensations in there that have not been archived, that you can pull them out. You need their per pay amount. Their last paid date is helpful, again, in sorting and filtering and making sure you only have current people. Their pays paid, pays in contract. And I do the retirement code, so I know who's reporting to STRS. So, and then you're going to filter. So once you have all of that on your grid, which you can do by going to, you're going to go to more and just find all of the information, which I know isn't always easy to find, but pull all that information in. Then you're going to have to do some filtering on your grid. Now, it's probably just going to depend on how clean your contracts are. If you've got a lot of old contracts out there that haven't been archived, you may have to do some additional filtering. But I would say you're going to filter on your retirement code of STRS. In this case, I only want people that are active because those are the people I'm paying. I'm not paying anybody that's terminated. And then maybe if this isn't super clean, you could maybe use the label. Again, it just depends on your district and how clean the information is. But then you're going to run, and I believe I have all of this on here. So filter the grid by STRS, label, or last paid date, any variation to get the information clean. And then you want to click on the report button, and you're going to want to run this as Excel data. Okay. So I'm just going to say that all of this information is good. What I would do is I would say, okay, who still has pays left to be paid? So I would do a formula of pays in contract minus pays paid and then drag that down and figure out who still has pays left and how many pays they have left. Then I'm going to take, so this is pays remaining. And then I want to know amount to be paid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm going to take their per pay, amount per pay, and I'm going to multiply it by their pays remaining. That tells me how much I still have to pay them over the summer. So that amount should match what is on the STRS advance hang on, let me get there. This right here. This is the STRS advance report, not the fiscal year to date, but this is the actual advance. This is your people that are advancing their contract amount due. So this amount right here, contract amount due, should equal this amount right here that I've calculated that I still have left to pay them. Administrators will be inflated again, or I shouldn't say administrators, pickup on pickup employees. This amount will not be correct because what is on the advance report is the inflated amount because it's pickup on pickup included in compensation. So you may have to pull them out separately and do a different set of formulas. But for your teachers or people that don't have pickup on pickup, this should equal. And then finally, you would do, let's do this one. If you take the amount left to be paid and multiply it by 14%, assuming that they don't have pickup on pickup, this should be their advance amount. This is how much you still need to pay STRS for this fiscal year. So that number would be on the advance report under this advance pickup. So this column right here. Also on this is the fiscal year to date report, and it would be this non-tax advanced amount. That should be the same number. If it's not, again, pickup on pickup people excluded. If it's not, we need to figure out why. So that, it kind of skipped all of this, is detailed all of that. If you, if you've already entered a payout, that will be included in it, and so will your docs. So just take those into account. You can generate the STRS advance report So this one right here, the advanced positions report, you can run that as a CSV to find out. So that way you could do like a comparison, like you could do a VLOOKUP and easily compare it to the report that you generated out of USPS. So now that everybody hates me for talking about that.
And we can help you with a VLOOKUP if you don't know how to do that.
Yep, we can do that. What I did honestly the other day when I was trying to balance, I literally sorted both of my reports by the employee name. I just did a copy and paste. It wasn't perfect. I had to like delete some people, move some people, but I was just, and rather than doing a VLOOKUP, to each their own. But that should, like, once you have all of these figures, you should be able to do, you know, a sum, and that should equal your advance amount, ideally. But you do want to pay attention to who's advancing and who's not advancing, positions that are advancing and not advancing. You know, actually go through and look at all of those. All right. All right, so that I know we're going very long here. I apologize, but I wanted to spend some time reviewing that because I do think it's helpful. So once you have all of your advanced reports balanced and you're good with everything, it is recommended that you request a backup of your USPS by us. This has come in handy more times than I can count. In the event that you find out the second pay in July that your advance was incorrect, and we've had this happen, we have your backup to do some correcting. It's also come in handy if you forget or cannot find your wage obligation or benefit obligation reports. We've been able to go back to this backup and run those reports for you. So it is recommended. You obviously do not have to. We recommend it, but if you do submit the ticket asking for a backup, please wait until you hear from us that it's been completed before you proceed. Because once you proceed and run your advance, we've been able to copy, you know, we do back everybody up at 11 p.m. and 11 a.m. And, you know, if you're like, oh, well, I had it ready to go at, you know, 10:30 and I didn't touch it again until, you know, then maybe we could pull your 11 o'clock back up. But just wait for us to tell you everything's good and you can proceed. Once you have done all of that, you can generate your submission file. So you're going to generate your submission file. You're going to save that. Note, please, that what this does is this marks all of your positions and compensations in advance. But it does not actually submit the file, okay? There's another step to actually submit the file. So at this point, if you have any third parties, which we don't have a lot of, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you should get a file from that third party. You're going to choose it right here. You're going to choose the file that you just submitted and you're going to merge them. So once you're done, you're going to choose your file. You're just going to find that submission file that you just generated or your merged file, and you're going to submit it to STRS. Then you want to make sure, so that's uploading it. You want to make sure that it actually got uploaded. So you can go to core organization and look for it right here. So if I go to core organization, this should be checked. So your advanced mode would be checked, and you'll have a timestamp right here, and it should say July 5th of 24 or whatever that is. and it'll tell you what your advance amount was. So take the time to go in and check to make sure that you have actually done that. We did have people last year that forgot that step. No big deal. We had the file. We were able to go in here and submit it, but just do take the time to check to make sure you submit it. Just let us know once you've completed everything, only because we kind of keep track to make sure everybody's got everything completed for the fiscal year. So you can just send us a ticket that everything's been completed and you've submitted your STRS. We'll check you off the list. And that's that. That is, then you can breathe and go on vacation. So next up is you have your post fiscal year end closing. If you have not created July at this point, you're going to want to go in and create July. You can create July in advance. It's fine. You just may not want to make it current until you're actually running your July payroll. You're going to close June whenever it makes sense to you. Sometimes you're posting attendance days and posting leave accruals with a June date, but you're in July. So you might need to leave June open, but as soon as you've got all of that cleaned up, you've posted all of your absences, go ahead and close out June, close June. When you do that, it does create a bunch of fiscal year end reports that we've listed out right here. Again, you'll see these benefit obligation, wage obligation, but if they may not be correct. That's why we have you run them in advance. And they'll go out to your file archive under the fiscal year reports. When you're in STRS Advance, these types of payments will cause your advance amount to be off, or your advance amount paid back to be off. It's okay, we just need to know about it. So if at the end of, and you cannot process regular or irregular pay types while in advance on that position. So once you have completed your last pay for fiscal year 24, you should be able to come into core organization, and this box should be unchecked, and the amount paid back should be, I think it wipes it to 0. I think these two, your advance amount and your amount paid back, wipes out. As you're making your payments, as you're running your payrolls, the amount paid back will increase with each payroll. So you could come in here and check it to verify it. But after you're done, this gets unchecked and these become 0. If you're still in advance mode and you have finished paying all, you're done with that contract year, if you're still in advance, likely it's because of a doc. But there's some instructions here on how you can find that. You can run your fiscal year to date report, your advanced positions report and the check advance report that we did earlier. And we can find out, you're going to check person by person and see who didn't match up with what you told STRS you were paying back and figure that out. We can help you with that at any point. And then if you figure it out on your own, you can let us know that, hey, you figured it out and take you out of advance. But nobody's thinking about that right now. So just some things these are just reminders. You want to create your job calendars. We talked about that during the new contract training. So you create your job calendars for the new school year. You're going to work on your new contracts. If you convert personal leave to sick leave, you can do that. If you need to reset your personal leave, if you don't do vacation accruals and you just do a one-time lump sum deposit, you can do that. All of these, the under benefit update and projection, that's where you're going to do your resetting of personal leave. And you can convert personal leave to pay, or you can convert personal leave to sick leave. And then if you're just doing vacation, like lump sums, then you would just need to go into for leaves and then click on your accumulations and add them in here. So just find your employee, give them their 10 days of vacation, and then save it. All right, that was a long session. Any questions? Everybody's asleep. Okay.
Nothing else in the chat. No hands are up.
Okay, so that's all I have. I do just want to mention, June is very busy for all of us. We all know that. I will be out of the office for 2 weeks, and Rhonda's flying solo. So be patient with her if you have questions between June 5th and June 19th. She's manning it by herself. I think Sandra will be in a couple of days during that time frame. But just bear with her. She will get to you as soon as she can. That's just your little heads up.
Objection. You can object, Rhonda.
Who approved
No,
that?
I want Tanya to take her time off. Yeah, she deserves it.
Who approved that? I want to know who approved that.
Everybody approved it. Okay, well, that's all we have. Thank you for sticking with us for these 3 hours. I know it was long, but we appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll get the recording, get that posted on HTC's website. There's no password or anything to get on it. You just click on it and it'll take you right there. So we'll be posting that hopefully today or tomorrow. So in case you missed anything, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.